This is kind of a smaller session, which is good, more geared towards folks who maybe are either struggling with trying to build up their knowledge of Drupal or to see where the resources are or what's available. And so I asked for a chance to present. I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk a little bit with people who are fairly new, and then also we've got some veterans in here as well who can give some ideas. And with this presentation, I'm going to take a lot of this information from what I took yesterday, talking to lots of folks in Drupal in the sessions, and then also from here on, I'll sort of build up this presentation, and it'll be sort of a continual expansion basis as we find new resources and new technologies for passing information back and forth. But this is the overall session for what I'd like to discuss with you, going from what a personal learning network is, some of the tools that are available, and then how you can use that to really bolster and like to jumpstart your personal learning network. My name is Rob Green. I'm a web developer right now for a private company, and I'm actually starting with University of Northern Iowa in August as their web developer at the main library. So for me, I've been working on a grad school program for instructional technology, and many of the things that I got from my last course on personal learning networks, I thought this really applies to what Drupal users are dealing with too. So my goal is to try to port over that knowledge from sort of the learning community into Drupal. So the biggest part, as was mentioned in the keynote address yesterday by Jen, was the fact that there's so many folks who sort of lurk within the Drupal community, who get information and they're building their sites, and they're using it very focused, very laser focused on what their projects are and what their work requirements are, but not really contributing or passing information along to other Drupal users. So a personal learning network is a great way to address that. And the concept of a personal learning network has really caught on within the educational community. You think of teachers in public school settings all over the country, and they're constantly looking for best practices and new tools, especially like free ones that are available to them that they can share within their classrooms. And since the technology is continually developing, what might have been really popular 4 or 5 years ago isn't just not used today. And there's constantly new tools coming out for education for school children, because they expect a higher level of interaction or experience than maybe we did when we were in school. So this personal learning network approach is very popular. Like I said, it's popular in education because these teachers who are very separated from each other, much like Drupal users, geographically. They may have conferences, they may have events that they get together, but they continually and constantly need to be fed new information and new resources so that they can evaluate them in their classrooms. And from the textbooks that we studied over the semester, past few weeks, has defined a personal learning network, or sometimes it's called a professional learning network, as the whole collection of people where you engage information and exchange, usually online. You may never actually meet those people, but the goal, and they understand it on their end, is they're posting information, and as you're receiving it and sharing it, is that your relationship with them is really to help expand both of your knowledge. And they're happy because they're being seen as somebody who's an expert because other people are following them. And then you're happy because you're getting that information and you're able to share it on to other people. So a personal learning network is very different from how I've approached using Drupal and also just generally using the web for the past few years, where as I'm working on a Drupal project, I would tend to think of, okay, what tools are out there? What websites can I go to for tutorials or for training or to solve a problem? And that's a very narrow, a very specific need, where what I'm trying to do now is switch that mindset to not just, okay, what resources are there, but who are the people with those resources? Who are the folks in the know that I should be not friends with, but be connected to in order to find out where those other tools are and even just get inspiration from them to see the work that they're doing and say, hey, I can do that also. And why would you want to do that? because as I saw, this was basically me last year as I was getting into Drupal and had seen the very fluffy part of Drupal, the happy side, to say, oh, it's open source, it's free, you can build websites much more easily than trying to do it just with CSS or HTML or some of these proprietary CMSs. It took coming to DrupalCorn and seeing through the sessions and seeing through the discussions with others, thinking, oh my gosh, there's so much here. How the heck am I going to learn and find the information I need in order to build the sites the way that my company wants me to? Very high pressure to get some of these more exotic kinds of functions working. So it took me about a year to really get a handle on some of these tools that are available. And some I found have worked well, some I found have not. And so I wanted to talk with you about some of the things that I've used and also other folks that I've talked to who are pretty savvy in the Drupal world, what they're using resource-wise in order to build up their knowledge and their skill sets. And it really is a disciplined approach to knowledge building. If you see an article that you think, oh, this is really useful, this is something that probably other folks could benefit from, and you read it, and then you're like, okay, I'll go to my project, and you get it done. You haven't passed that information on to other folks who really could use that. So how do you sort of take a step back, put on the brakes for a moment, and say, okay, this information is great. How do I share it? What's the best way that I can get this out to folks who I know can use it? So each of these has advantages and disadvantages. And going into some of those, I was really surprised about Twitter. How many of you have a Twitter account? Is it just about everybody? I had one. I wanted basically to camp on my username, so I registered it, and then I was on it for about a week, and I saw that the information that my friends were posting, like, I just don't care. And that's the stereotypical, what I had for dinner, what my kids are doing, and I certainly care about that, but I don't have time. It's not something I want to read through every day, and so I ended up just not shutting down the account, but I just ignored it and neglected it for several years until I got into this graduate program on social media and said, okay, I'll dust it off and I'll see what I can use it for properly. And one of the textbooks we had a whole chapter on using Twitter properly so that you can, in their case, as educators, you can get the kinds of relevant information that Twitter is great for. So what we found is, if you think of Twitter as like a microblog, it's just information within 240 characters that you scan through quick. I've talked with folks who are very regular Twitter users. They don't read every note that's posted. They just scan through it real quick to see things that are most interesting, and the rest are ignored. And it's kind of a skill that you develop to see, okay, what's going through my feed today, there's 100 different things that people are posting. What are the 2 or 3 that I want to click on and learn more about? But it's fantastic, I found, for getting those best practices and insights from people who have similar interests as you do and similar concerns and maybe job descriptions. So being able to get those in short bursts and knowing that, hey, it's posted today, so it's probably relevant. It's probably something that's either an article or information that is no more than maybe a month or 2 old. So it's great for getting those kinds of resources for tracking trends in the industry. And it really depends on who you follow. I listed a few folks on here that folks within sessions yesterday, I said, okay, who are your favorite people to follow to get Drupal information? And from what I gathered, about like 80% or 90% of most, like especially for personal profiles, is going to be work related. It's going to be things related to Drupal or other very closely aligned topics that would matter to you. And then sometimes, like Dave Reed's going to post pictures of his cats, and that's fine. You just ignore the cat pictures. But the vast majority, and I've already hooked this into my Twitter feed, and the vast majority of things, maybe I don't have time to read them all right now. I was like, wow, this is good information, and you sort of just build up a conversation virtually with all these folks of what sort of like a tapestry of what's going on in Drupal and what's going on in web development in general. Another important part, and I'll jump over to my Twitter feed, is really fascinating to me because let me log out of here. Sign in as me. Okay, yeah, so we're seeing a lot of Drupal information getting passed through now. And I've got a pretty small group right now. As I said, I just picked up on it again after the class that I was taking. And so I've got all the teachers who were in my class session as people I'm following and who are following me. And I'm also just building up my own list of or sort of library of comments that I'm posting. But you'll see on here that some of the folks, as you view their profile, you see just how prolific they are. Many of who they have lots of followers and some following. And as you can imagine, folks who have lots and lots of followers and a much smaller level of following people, those tend to be your industry leaders and people who are sort of the trendsetters and the real idea people of your industry. And the thing that was really valuable in this is to see, okay, if he has that many folks that are following him, let's see who he's following. Because, gosh, if he has folks who he connects with, they must also be either family members or really sort of heavy hitters. So you can view theirs, and that's what I've got right here set up. And the mentality I had to break out of when using Twitter was to realize that it's not that I'm friends with this guy. I probably never talk to him. I never meet him. He has no idea who I am and probably doesn't really care. But the people who follow him, they are also, like I said, probably either industry leaders or folks who have something that they want to pass. And you can tell in here by putting in their descriptions. And hopefully, as you have your own Twitter account, your description is also something that will entice folks to want to follow you, that you have information that's useful. But the main point being of other people is to see that you can grab their, sort of like harvest their links or their connections. That's okay. In Facebook, which was sort of my mentality before I had started working with Twitter, my mentality in Facebook was, okay, I don't want to go through other people's friends list and try to friend them. I mean, that's creepy. And so I thought the same way with Twitter. I thought it was the same kinds of social mores, but that's not true at all. It's actually really helpful to go through and see, okay, who are the people that he connects to? And then I found that the best approach, might take a different way, but I found the best approach is if it looks like somebody is going to be useful or have some information that you want to know, just follow them. Make it a shotgun approach to take as much as possible, unless it's obviously like a family member. But just add them to your following, and then or get the people you follow. And if you find that what they're posting really is just junk and not useful at all, then unfollow them. It's very easy. They never know. Well, actually, they do know, as I found out from Doug Van yesterday. But I don't think they'll send you hate mail. Why are you gone? I needed you. So does that make sense as far as like the difference between Twitter and Facebook? That it's public information. It's what they want to have out there, and so they're going to be grateful to have you follow them. They'll just be happy to know that people care what they're posting. And then if somebody follows you, it's a good practice to follow them back, unless they are like obviously horrifyingly creepy. A certain level of creepy is manageable. Horrifyingly creepy, you're done. Another part is, as you probably have all done, is webinars and online training. That is more of a static approach to learning, where somebody has just posted a piece of information or a video, and you go through and you consume that and develop off of it. Yesterday I asked folks which ones they thought were the most useful online trainings and webinars, and these are some of the ones they provided. I will have this information actually in the next part. What I'm going to show. There's a little B button up there that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, and it has most of these links already put into it, so you don't have to write these down. But lynda.com was mentioned as a really useful resource. I've gone through it a few times. Acquia has recorded webinars as well. They're one of the premier companies for Drupal, and the founder of Drupal actually is founder of this, as I understand. So certainly they're going to have quite a bit of information available. Level Up Tuts has great tutorials on YouTube and on their site. A few others as well that sometimes they're paid. So if you're cheap like me, you might just try others first and then sink in the $35 a month or whatever if you really have to. I just found out yesterday, like an idiot, I didn't realize DrupalCon, all the sessions were recorded. And has that been for every year or just this year? Does anyone know?
They usually do at DrupalCon.
So, yeah, that's going to be one of the first things I check out when I go back. Just like these sessions, they're all available on YouTube from the DrupalCon site, and just tons and tons of individual sessions that are maybe 45 to 50 minutes long. And then Scott Wilkinson mentioned the Drupal ED podcast. Has anyone looked at that yet or listened to it?
Yeah, it's good.
It's decent?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one also. I've got in my Digo feed, but I've just not had a chance to explore it yet. And part of what's useful when you think of not just, okay, here are the resources, but here's what about the network that I can build off of that, the people side of learning. What, for the presenters, who actually recorded these, and are they prolific in the field? Have they written quite a bit? You think of Nate Haug having done presentations online. If you've never heard his name before, you'd see, okay, well, Nate Haug, let me Google him and then see if he has a Twitter feed. Because if he's teaching about this stuff and he's got enough experience and competence to write books about it and to do web tutorials, probably he's somebody who's going to continually be a good reference for me or a good way to learn information. So that's the bottom line for PLN, is not just consuming this information, but developing some sort of relationship, even if it's just a follower relationship of the folks who are doing these. It's kind of a one-step up approach from the actual material itself. Have any of you been on the IRC chat for DrupalCorn? Got a handful of folks. And I learned about this last year, and it's still a concept I'm kind of getting my brain around. We think of a chat room having been around since the early days of the internet. This is a similar kind of approach, and I'm just going to jump on to our web chat so you can see what that looks like. Let's do it from here. So webchat.freenode.net is where the DrupalCorn folks tend to hang out. And I've gotten to keep this up on my desktop as much as possible. So it knows my nickname, and it's going to put me into the site. And I can see everybody else who is already hooked in to this session right now. And if I were to... Oh. Thanks. Hello back. Presentation right now. So can't talk. Sorry. And we use these as a very informal, day-to-day way to discuss. Thanks. We use this to discuss some of the problems that we're dealing with, or you might say, hey, has anybody had experience, or has anybody tried out the Corny module, and do you find that it's worthwhile? And they'll say, oh, yes, I've tried it, it's terrible, or I love it. They should say they love it. And here's a link for more information on it, and they'll shoot me a link. And I've used this, actually getting value out of it probably half a dozen times where I was dealing with a problem that I could not solve on my own, and I just didn't see anything available, and it seemed like a minor thing. Like, I know I've got some setting wrong, And so I would provide a link, and it was Clouseau. Who is that?
John Van Dyke.
John Van Dyke.
That is, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. He's super in human form. And now I know that he's the guy who saved my bacon last year. I got to think of him now. Why is he Clouseau?
That's just his. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
He's
that's
stealthy.
yeah. That's another really good point. And that's great. If he's Clouseau and he's always Clouseau, then it's easy for us to know. Okay, if he's on Drupal.org and you see something posted by Clouseau, oh, okay, it's John Van Dyke.
I think that's his Twitter handle too.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a really important part of having an online identity and being findable in a personal learning network. Because as you develop your skills, other people are going to want to connect with you. It's just a given. Folks who don't know as much are going to ask, or sort of glom onto your knowledge. So the best way to make sure that you're always going to be findable is to keep that name always the same as much as possible. And that's part of why when I first heard about Twitter, I just got the Rob Green, Iowa handle, because that's what I always use for everything. So anytime I see something, this could be a useful website or a useful tool, I'll just make sure that I get Rob Green, Iowa. And maybe I'll never use it again, but I haven't. Go ahead.
And this is a great way to start. I didn't know if you were going to talk about IRC clients or not, but there's different clients that you can download and put on your computer to hook into the freenode.net. That way you can set it up so that anytime you open your box, like it will actually just automatically put you into chat, and then you'll be connected all the time. It's good practice to, if you're going to use something like this, to sit in the chat room regularly, because that will give you, a little bit more respect, I guess. If you kind of hop in and ask a question and then you leave and you don't really help answer any others, or like just at least be there, really just being there helps.
Yeah, that's a super point. I haven't used outside software. I've tried hooking in, and I'm only really able to use this at the office. So it's weird. They're kind of.
Some of the clients are baffling. It's been around for so long.
Yeah.
They're just kind of confusing because they've been around for like 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what I heard from was it Doug Van? You had the last presentation. He and I were talking yesterday. He says that he's got an app that he uses that basically sends him messages anytime something comes through with his name on it. So it serves as almost like a Gmail app for him, and then he can respond back just through that little app and send his message back. So there are much more elegant ways of using IRC than what I showed there, but that just humbly shows the level that I'm at still.
That'll get you started.
Yeah.
That'll get you started. It's a great place to go. Colloquy is COLLO, I think, QUY. There's a Mac client, and then there's a PC client that I used as well, and I can't remember the name of it right now.
So
It's,
MIRC.
no, it's
Yeah, I've downloaded MRC, and I thought that was a little bit weird too.
Yeah, it feels like a Windows 3.1. It's visual.
Yeah.
ADM, ADIUM, yeah.
Just load it up.
Okay.
Just load it up.
So DrupalCorn it's not just the conference, but it's the group of folks who sort of tie together and get information and pass it back and forth to the chat room. So moving on, I'm sure most of you have gone through Drupal.org in order to see for issue queues and, of course, download modules, things like that. That's a primary resource for Drupal. And I've talked with people about how they use Drupal or Drupal.org. They found that it's really helpful to get a feel for who what they call rock stars, the folks who are either contributing to core or just generally have been working with Drupal forever. Know who those folks are, and the folks who really know the game, those are the ones that I tend to place more credence on comments, like not just the most recent comment in an issue queue, but this, let's say Dave Reed or Agent Rickard or folks like that. Those are the ones that I really pay close attention to when they have something to say. And then, of course, I check out Twitter and see if they've got a Twitter feed under that name and follow them on Parts of looking at usernames, you can click on their profile and see how many commits they've had, what kind of, or the number of comments, and sort of just their level of involvement, and that's how you get a really good idea to see what their confidence is. And it's really fun, like with Dave Reed, I knew that I saw his name as being on feeds as a primary builder and lots of the modules that I use all the time. So I just think it's really cool that I get to sit in a session next to him and take him on in cornhole, and just the community side is what really keeps me energized about Drupal, and seeing that these guys are just normal folks who just happen to know way more than I do in life. But still generally pretty cool. And this Drupal.org is a really great venue, as well as Stack Exchange. You guys use Stack Exchange also? I was originally thinking, okay, well, I should post this issue in Drupal.org because that's the Drupal side, that's the official one. And then I should stay away from Stack Exchange because that must be a knockoff or something else that's not useful. But they just are different communities. They have different folks who tend to gravitate toward one or the other for posting help and comments. So both are equally valid for finding information, and I'll check, or if I Google a problem, I'll usually check out both as solutions. I do find that Stack Exchange tends to be more helpful within Google searches for finding answers to problems, because Drupal.org, for some reason, it just is a little bit tough to find exactly what you're looking for as a problem. This usually just bangs right on and say, oh, this is exactly what I'm dealing with. So both for Stack Exchange and Drupal.org, I recommend getting user accounts under your normal handle. And if you find something that works out for you, just be sure, particularly on Stack Exchange, to knock up that level one time, that little arrow that says how useful that solution was. Just hit the up and be part of that, the quality and constructive comments and feedback that they're providing, so that they know that what they're providing is working well. And even that little tiny step keeps you from just being a lurker, like Jen had said yesterday. You're actually contributing something to the community that way. Blogs and articles, that's a really interesting issue, and I'm kind of torn with blogs. I listed on here, create your own, maybe not. In my class discussion this summer, we had to create our own blog, and I just gritted my teeth as I had to do it, because I have found there's millions of blogs out there, and I think that just adding your own for the sake of adding your own is kind of silly, especially if you're not going to keep it up regularly. That's its own heavily disciplined approach in general. In addition to a PLN, having a regular blog is very, very tough. So I wouldn't say, oh, go ahead and start your own blog and become an expert, because it's not easy. You've got Drupal to work on instead. But on top of that, maybe you don't create your own blog, but if you see something that's useful, definitely comment back to the original poster. And if I could give you two things to take away from this session, the first one would be the Drupal side of following other people very regularly and sort of harvesting their follows. That's a big one. And then commenting on blogs is the other huge, huge takeaway that I give you. Not just to say, oh, thanks, this is great, and then leave, but go in and add something a little bit additional to it. I had one last night. I'll just show you real quick. This is my fun example. Let's see where that's at. Oh no, can I not? Oh, it's right, it's under my Gmail account, or my UNI account.
I'm thinking, Rob, I was thinking that a lot of the people in this room are, developers and stuff like that, so maybe you don't have to deal with this. It's maybe more a project management kind of thing, or maybe just even a content. But I'm really a technology user, not a developer at all, and so I manage a website that uses Drupal, and I work for the Iowa Department of Education. And, a few years ago, they were all like, oh, we need a blog for this site. We need this for this site. And I just kept saying, no, step back. You don't even have enough time your web page, and now you're going to do a blog. You know, same thing with like our Twitter account for our. I mean, we as a communications area, we manage that as we have one account for the department, and it all goes through that account. Because even though they think they're going to tweet a lot on a particular hashtag or have their own account or something, I really found that the thing that they don't think about is how they're going to do that regularly. So I appreciate that comment that you made about starting a blog if you're not going to keep it up. And that's something that, you know, as a content person, putting stuff into websites and or technology, period, you know, the usage part is difficult. And, you know, communication can be difficult at times. And it sounds like, you know, this community is very strong at that. But in general, you know, I don't know, I try and tell people not to do that unless they're completely committed to doing it. Otherwise, I mean, how many, you know, articles and websites have we been to where they have a few things on there, you go there once and then you think, oh, those people weren't really that committed to that.
It's just
Because
stale and
people that
dead.
do it well, do it really well, and the people who don't do it well, just, you know, there's way more of those.
Yeah, and that's where the commenting side is great, because you can still contribute. It's almost like a mini blog because you're adding something without having to have the overhead of an entire blog of your own. As I was doing research on this topic, I came across this blog article that it was from Drupal Camp, Colorado, and Rick Benelius. Are any familiar with Rick Benelius? Okay, he's a pretty crazy guy. He's MIT science and engineering or material science, and he ended up leaving that whole field and just going into Drupal full time. And I love him because he's not shy about saying, hey, I came into this with no background in web at all, and here's as I'm learning, as I'm growing, here's what I'm gaining, and has really contributed a lot to the community, even in a short time. So he had this article, and of course I'd already gone through my social media program, and I knew that you have to comment if you want folks to keep on blogging. It helps them to know that people are reading their stuff. So I read through this, great material, and then I saw, okay, he wrote this 9 days ago, and nobody's written or posted anything back yet, no comments. So I posted this in, and then he, of course, replied back to me right away, or actually not right away, but a few days later, and then of course said, oh, say hi to Dave Reed for me. And that little bit of connection is something that now if I happen to see him at a DrupalCon or whatever, I certainly can reach out and talk to him a little bit and say, hey, I was the one who posted on you or replied and really appreciated your stuff. And so now just that little tiny bit of connection is something that I didn't have before and could be really useful. And there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, somebody is really useful to me. It kind of is a transactional relationship. I'm not going to get him a birthday present, but I will definitely appreciate the kinds of things he has to say and post about. And so those comments allow that to happen. You can put shameless plugs to your own site or your own information in the comment section if it's relevant. That's generally not considered spam or a no-no, because if you have something that adds on to what they're saying, that gives them an opportunity maybe to follow your blog or follow the information you have, and also to let their readers know that there's additional material out there. And then tweet and share as much as possible if you find something that's useful. And again, that standard ID is key.
10 minutes left.
Social bookmarking is also a really great tool for the personal network, and it's something that I never had messed with before or thought would be useful. Most of you probably bookmark stuff in your own browser. If you find it's useful, you want to get to it. But social bookmarking is like regular bookmarking on steroids, and allows you to have the things that you find are useful, the general resources, shared with other folks of similar interests. And bookmarking is really great because if you find a resource, you're like, hey, this could be really handy to the other people in my PLN. You could post it to Twitter, or you could post it to Facebook, or other places, but it doesn't really have any staying power. As time goes on, it'll get further in the list, and it'll just sort of be forgotten about. But with with social bookmarking, and the one that's really popular in educational circles is Digo. I'll show you what that looks like. I could say with the most or all browsers have a little Digo extension you can add to the top, where for each page that you're on, when you have a Digo account, you can say, hey, I like this, I want to save it. And then I could say, it'll automatically put in, okay, establish your personal learning network. And I could say, for the description, here's my DrupalCorn 2014 presentation. I've got a group set up already for PLN for Drupal 7. So I'm going to share it with that group, and I'll put a couple of tags in here for Drupal, let's say how to training, and we'll also put DrupalCorn or King. So I'll save it, and now it's going to appear on in that group section for the camp. And I've got a URL. I'll show you. I'll assign for you in a moment. It's tinyurl.com PLN Drupal. And this is a public page. I've set this group to be publicly viewable. And this group, even if you don't have an account, you can look at this page and see all the bookmarks that I've provided for things that I've found as being useful. And I've just done this over the last few days. Several different ways you can view it. You can say, have lots of information. You're able to comment on it to say whether you thought it was useful or not, or even provide additional info off of that. Or you can just have it in a very small view. But and additionally, because of the tags, it's almost like mini sites. You can say, okay, all these deal with Drupal. They're all tagged with Drupal. But I can also, as I remove that, say I just want to check out videos. So I can go to the ones that are tagged video, and I can see just the ones that are video related. It's taken me a while to really get the hang of Digo, but it's a free site or a free login for the basic version, and it's at www.digo.com. And if you were to go to this page and then say, as a logged in user, I can add you in as a group member, and then you can post also for the links that you find as well. So I've found this to be a really handy resource, not just for Drupal, but then also for all my other graduate school classes for the information I need and want to share it with other students. It's all going to sit there and be available for, of course, forever until Digo goes bankrupt, which hopefully won't happen. They've been around since 2005, so it's not a fatty thing. Go ahead.
Doesn't Iowa AEA, you're with Iowa AEA, right?
Department of Education.
Are you encouraging, I thought teachers now are encouraged to use something like Digo. I can't remember what the name of it is though. But it's much more visual and interactive.
Oh. I know that the educator community uses Digo or has in the past. I haven't heard of the new one, so.
I just texted Mama, see what she says. She's a teacher and she uses it. But there's a site that's like that's very interactive and more visual, so it's probably less daunting if you're not familiar with it. But yeah.
Sure. Hey, you're in my personal learning network. That's something. And what you provide, I'll take back, because apparently if the instructional technology program at UNI, they're still pushing Digo. If there's something that's even more useful than that,
I would be
then
interested in knowing that too.
yeah. So yeah, I'll pass that along, and I'll post that to Twitter also.
And the URL, what was the last one? Is it PLN?
PLN.
Okay, thank you.
PLN Drupal. Going into the in-person side here, there are opportunities, just like right now, to go in and actually meet the people who, like Clouseau, I've got to run out and see John after and say, "You're Clouseau!" Give him a big hug. He might be freaked out. Never mind. Speaking of creepy, horribly creepy. So DrupalCon, a little expensive. That's the national Drupal forum. They have one. Well, they have one in the U.S. and they've got one in Europe as well. I've not attended one yet, but if it sounds like University of Northern Iowa, where I'll be working, may send me to that. That's a great personal connection. Of course, DrupalCorn is where we're at. Other regional camps that are available. Additionally, check out Drupal or groups.drupal.org to see if there's local user groups near you. And then, have any of you seen DrupalCal? That's pretty darn slick. It doesn't have everything in the world for Drupal meetings, but quite a lot of them. I think .org. No! DrupalCal. Yeah, so these are all the Drupal events that it knows about from Drupal.org that are hosted and where it occurs. So yeah, there's us with a link to how to get to our camp. So that's a really visually friendly way to see what's going on for Drupal and things you can attend in person. LinkedIn, I've got as a resource for groups. And do you guys have LinkedIn accounts or not? Hit or miss on that one. I know in the educational community, I was surprised none of the teachers in my class had LinkedIn accounts because they don't really interact that way. But I was thinking the same approach for Drupal. Well, maybe it's just not useful, but talking in the sessions, there are quite a few, or in the breakouts, there's quite a few folks who use LinkedIn in order to stay in connection with groups like the Drupal Community Network, the Drupal User Group, and then Drupal Developers as the three primary groups that they find there's really useful information that's posted in those groups that don't show on Drupal.org or other forums. So it's definitely worth checking out. I've not looked into it yet, but I've heard such great things about it that that's one thing I'll do when I get back is join these groups and see what's being posted. It's a nice way in some ways to establish relationships and more personal connection, but what I've so far have been using it for is just to see for folks that I know that I've already connected with. I look at their certifications and sort of their career track to see what sorts of things should I be studying, what would be useful for me to take maybe certification-wise in order to be more professional or more knowledgeable in the field. And then looking at Facebook, I don't see it as really a handy thing for Drupal. Have you had anybody had positive experiences or found something really useful from Facebook that you wouldn't have gotten somewhere else? Yeah, it's too many cat pictures on Facebook for it to be useful in this. So the takeaways as we walk out is to get connected and get known with your standard ID. Establish something that's very easy to remember that you can tell somebody in person that they would be able to remember. Try to stay away from numbers because numbers are bad. I was a government major. Continue developing these in-person relationships through the conferences and through the socials. Always go to the socials. Volunteer. This is my first year volunteering with the committee, and you'll learn so much more about both the people and Drupal as a whole just from those additional relationships. And then harvest whatever Twitter followers you can, and find people to connect to. And certainly you can start with mine. I'm just Rob Green, Iowa. Look at who I've got in mind and build off of that. And then I'm going to steal from yours because hopefully you'll be able to do more work than I have time to do. And I'll start grabbing all your contacts. And it's not a bad thing. It's fine to do. Drupal PLN, like I mentioned, please post things that you find that are handy. And then join us in the IRC channel so that you're a contributor, not just a consumer of Drupal. And that will hopefully avoid, from these sessions, having an experience like this, which is generally how I feel with Drupal, especially as I started out. So that's my presentation. I did it in 45 minutes. Yay! And then I'll just say, as an aside after the presentation, that this is the first time I've done a Drupal presentation, and you have things that you can add to the community. I certainly couldn't talk about some of the higher level, like how to build certain kinds of modules, or I don't even understand Drush yet. But there's something that you'd be able to contribute, and it's just a matter of sending forward a presentation idea or concept and having them either approve it or disapprove it or ask more questions. But I would just heavily or strongly encourage you guys to take the leap and do a presentation and see where it takes you. So thanks.
In case anyone's curious, what
Yeah.
all of the teachers right now, I guess Iowa AEA is pushing educators in high school age areas. It's called Symbaloo.com, SYMBALOO. And I'm not sure how they're
It's
sharing.
really a different kind of approach, but that would be very appropriate for this, yeah.
Yeah.
It's, that's
I
kind
don't
of
know
what
anything
Symbol looks
about
like.
it.
It's a way to group hierarchically information under these little icon mechanisms.
Yeah,
It's
much
like
more
a-
visually friendly.
It's like an iPad front page or something. You know,
But you can nest them. It's kind of,
Yeah.
it doesn't look very impressive there, but once you dig into it,
Okay.
you.
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll take all the contacts, because I'm curious to see how this works too. I'll take all the bookmarks that I've created in Digo, and I'll convert them over into Symbaloo, and I'll post a link in my, I'll just say, here's my Twitter feed. It's Symbaloo. And so if you and I are connected on Twitter, then you'll have it. And I'm really curious to see what we come up with. Because it's not just my side, it's going to be pretty much anybody who has resources to post. But think of it. Very cool. Appreciate it, Rachel.
Yep.
Very cool.
I don't know anything about it yet, so, but my mom swears by it. But-
Does she swear a lot in general?
I would
Not
like
usually.
to actively work with
Super.
and promote this